So first today we'll discuss about the Terraform state file. What the state file is, it maps all the resources what we have provisioned through Terraform and the actual configuration files. Say here, what is our configuration file we have? So here we have the configuration file is main.tf. We have all the resources. And when we do the Terraform apply, the actual resources are getting created in the AWS or Azure, whatever the provider we have in that, the resources we are getting. Okay, those details, the mappings are stored in state file. Okay, the mappings are stored in the state file. And what is the name of the state file is terraform.tf
T.
state. Okay, it's a terraform.tf state. By default, if I don't specify any state file location, it is going to store in the local. But we have some challenges with the local state file and how to use the remote backend also we'll discuss. Okay, so if someone asks about the state file, say state file is nothing but it tracks the current state of our infrastructure which is managed by Terraform, or it's going to map the actual resources which are provisioned by Terraform. Okay, so then uh, like why we need the state file is it is going to track the infrastructure state. It is going to track the infrastructure state, and it's going to enable if any updates or modifications also, all those are going to be stored in the state file itself. And in which format it is going to store? So what is the like name is terraform.tf state, and it's going to store in the JSON format. All the resources are going to store, and the dependencies between the resources also is going to store in this itself. Okay. So what is the relation, implicit dependencies between them also is going to be created. And we can have the locking also. We'll discuss locking also. Okay. So then drift also is going to display if any changes have been there. It is going to show that these resources have been performed, like have been modified also it's going to do. Okay, so if we don't have the state file, what is the problem we are getting is, say if we don't have the state file, what is the problem we are getting is, like our infrastructure is going to be missing, or we will lose the tracking of that infrastructure. Again, if I do the next time the apply, the duplicate resources are getting created. If I do the Terraform apply, what is going to happen is,
Duplicate file
the
is
duplicate resources that keep on creating when I do the next time the apply same configuration files if I use. In order to avoid that one, we are going to use the state file. We are going to track it. We are going to track it through the state file. We are going to track that one. Okay, and updates and even modifications also. If if we don't store that in the state file, we can't perform the updates or delete of those resources. Also, we can't perform, and drift detection also is not possible. And multiple teams also we don't have the collaboration. Okay, and if the state file is deleted or corrupted, definitely even in the S3 also when we are using the remote backend, we need to we need to uh, enable versioning in the S3 bucket level. What is the concept of the versioning is, if enable the versioning, if any of the new file changes have been came into the state file, it is going to store those old details in the, where it is going to store those details.
The versions.
In the previous version, it is going to store, even if you lost that existing one, we are not going to miss anything. We are not going to miss anything. That is the advantage of using that is the advantage of using the versioning also. Locally, what is happening is, if any of the changes have been coming to the existing state file, then those changes will comes into terraform.tf state dot sorry, terraform.tf state dot backup file is getting created. Okay, what details are going to store in that backup file? Like the previous version before
Previous version of the
changes,
TF state.
at least till that point, if you restore, Okay, if the existing things have been corrupted or something have been wrongly added, at least from that backup file we can restore. In S3 level, what is recommended to enable? In S3 level, it's recommended to enable, versioning is recommended to enable. What is advantage of by enabling the versioning?
Even main file also is formed with main.swp, right? The backup file.
Come again?
In main file, sw main.swp.
Main data.
SWP. I think my use is okay.
We don't have any main.tf file would be there.
Okay. Yeah, main.tf file, if we editing something happen, it will form into .main.swp, right? SWO, SWP something.
No, we don't have anything. Terraform.tfvars would be there.
Okay.
That
Because
is
of
for the to pass the variables only.
okay, why what happened, right? When I'm doing some changes in main.tf file, so that time it was I did something wrong. So when I create Control Z, then it form main.swp something.
No, that is at the Linux file level you are telling.
Yes.
That is not the Terraform level.
Terraform level also it form it. But anyways, I will show it later. So yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
So
Continue.
now here, by default, the state file is going to be used in the local, but we can use in the remote backend. We can use like S3 or Azure Blob Storage or Terraform Cloud. Like this, we can use. Okay. And what is always better to have a backup, and versioning also better to enable. And I'll explain what is sensitive details. If you have any passwords or DB credentials, definitely we need to store the sensitive details also we need to use. Okay, so that is also we need to take care. Okay, so what is that sensitivity? I will explain. If someone sees the state file and if that stores the password, all those, then everyone can get our passwords or not. That too at the production environment, getting those details are little challenging. So that is the reason we need to encrypt our state file also. So we need to encrypt the state file also. If you don't encrypt the state file, what is going to happen? The sensitive details everyone can see. The sensitive details, everyone can see those details. Okay, that is one of the challenge we have. In order to avoid that one, we need to enable. And what is the backup and versioning is? Say even if any of the state file is corrupted, also we can have the previous version, and from that we can restore those details. Okay, from the restore, we can restore those details. So why we need the remote backend? We have challenges with the local backend. What is the advantage of the remote backend is like if the multiple people are using, if everyone perform the changes locally, others won't get those changes. Okay, so that is the purpose. What is the thing we need to use is we need to use the remote backend. We need to use. Okay, so that then collaboration also in the team also we need to use the same infrastructure, and definitely we need to keep that collaborative environment also. We shouldn't have tampering of that. All these also we need to manage. Okay, so then we need to have a single authoritative state file and which enables seamless collaboration. Okay, then like locking also, this is also very important feature. Locally locking is not possible. If someone is using the state file, then we need to take the so then we need to have a state file locking need to be done. Okay, so in this what is advantage is if anyone are using the state file, okay, it would be locked. For others it doesn't allow. So when that another user can perform the locking, when the another user can perform the locking.
It is not allowing.
No. After that user has performed all the changes, that lock would be released. Then only he can use it. Till the time others can't use that. Till the time others
Means
can't. Yeah,
at a time, multiple users are not
not able to
working.
perform. That would be locked
Okay.
for the other users. After that work is done, sometimes what happen is even if no one is using also it would be throwing like that is locked. At that moment, what we need to do is force unlock we need to use. For each and every time we shouldn't do the force unlock. Okay, so when we need to use the force unlock is everyone confirms that they're not using the state file, but somehow it is corrupted kind of thing. Okay, in that use case, we need to use force unlock also. And uh, security access control, definitely we need to give like encryption. If you don't enable encryption to the state file, what is going to happen is everyone can see that state file resources, but we may have some sensitive details. Those I don't want to display to everyone. Those I don't want to display to everyone. Okay, so then I need to encrypt those. I need to encrypt those details. If I don't encrypt, what is going to happen? Like everyone can see the sensitive details in the state file. If you have any passwords, certificates, those all details, definitely we need to use the encryption also need to enable. So we need to enable the encryption need to be enabled. And versioning also, what is the advantage with the versioning? If the existing version of the state file deleted also, at least from the previous versions of the state file, we can restore. Hence, at the S3 bucket level also, is always recommended to enable. Versioning also is recommended to enable. Okay, so that is also one of the advantage of that. Okay, so if you don't have the state file, what is going to happen? Like if the locally that state file is corrupted or deleted. Okay, so then definitely we'll have some challenges. In order to avoid that one, if any of that we have the state file can be lost, better to keep that like locally is not at all recommended, and collaboration issues, no locking, security wise also is risky because all our infrastructure details may be shared to others also, and a lot of manual overhead is there. That is the reason in the real time we are going to use remote backends. Okay, so now here we are going to use in AWS we are using S3 plus DynamoDB. Say S3 is for the state file management and DynamoDB is used for locking. Okay, so that means S3 is to store that state file. DynamoDB is using for locking purpose. Otherwise, we can use Terraform Cloud or Google Storage also and Azure Blob Storage also. If I use Azure Blob Storage, by default locking we are getting, and Terraform Cloud also we no need of DynamoDB kind of scenarios. Some cloud providers are by default supporting locking. Some of them by using DynamoDB kind of things we are getting locking. Some providers not supporting locking. Okay. So then in our use case, either we are using Azure we are using for the locking, or we are using AWS S3 plus DynamoDB, or we can use Terraform Cloud also. So we can use the Terraform Cloud also we can use for this. So definitely like a remote backend is the best practice as of now, and we need to enable secure, reliable, and collaborative workflows we need to configure. Okay. And what is going to happen with the state file locking? Multiple people, if they use the same state file, there may be chance of some corruption is going to happen. Okay. Like in order to keep that consistent and uncorrupted way, is recommended to enable state file locking we need to enable. So state file locking we need to enable. Say in AWS scenario, which feature or which service is using for the state file locking we are using? In which service you are using for the statefile locking?
DynamoDB.
At DynamoDB, we are going to use for the statefile locking. Okay, by default with the S3 we are not getting. Okay, but if you use the Azure, by default Azure blob storage itself is enough. Okay, so when the Terraform apply one user use, it acquire the lock on the state file. Okay, then lock is held during that operation. Even if others tries to like perform Terraform plan or apply, it shows that is locked as of now. Okay, so then like once the Terraform that user initial user his operations have been performed, his modifications all those have been written into the state file, then lock is going to be released. Okay, lock is going to be released. Okay, so now here AWS S3 is supporting locking, but by default it's not supporting. We need DynamoDB is required. Terraform Cloud, okay, so then GCS, blob storage, all these also is supporting locking. So maybe if you use other providers, it's maybe not supported. Okay, now here we have LIC is using the state file. At that moment, even if the Bob tries to run that, like that Bob is going to get this kind of error. The error will get lock ID also. If no one is using still, say suppose here LIC is confirming I'm not using my state file that is already done, but still if it is showing as the lock ID, then we need to use Terraform force-unlock that lock ID we need to give. So in which use case you are going to use force-unlock? Terraform force-unlock and that lock ID. Okay, in which use case you need to use this?
When it is locked by the some exception cases.
So no one like using the state file. So no one using the state file. Okay, like at that moment, like we need to confirm no one is using, but still it is showing it's locked. At that moment, we need to use the force unlock option. We need to use.
Do you have any
Okay.
report to see that, like, I mean, whether the no one using this specific file?
I didn't get you.
No. How? I mean, as you said that, like, this. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, now I'm able to hear you.
No, what I'm trying to say that the Terraform force unlock ID, right? So, I mean, how to confirm like no one is using? So, do we
That's we
have?
need to check it manually. No one is using that. From the team members, we need to confirm.
Okay. I
Because
thought, like,
it's lock it showing means something is there, but we waited for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. If it is showing still, we need to confirm with that. And even Terraform also who initiated previously, we can check it from the cloud trial. Previous who initiated that user also will confirm.
okay, got
Okay,
it.
so that's it won't like lock maybe like a mm, blocked kind of thing, but it won't happen every day. Okay, so once like a user finish all these Terraform operations, it will be unlocked automatically. Okay,
Yeah, got
Okay.
it.
so like the remote backend is not supported in not locally it's supporting. Sometimes it's maybe like if the Terraform crashes or any of the state file is interrupted, lock may remain. Manually, we need to do that. How to release this force-unlock, we may need to support. Okay, so then, but always better to use remote backend. Otherwise, even that lead for unnecessary issues. Okay. Then here in this use case, we are going to set up a remote backend with the DynamoDB. So now here we need to set up a remote backend. We have used AWS. The Terraform cloud also is used, but anyhow we have already AWS is our cloud, right? Then we are going to use S3 bucket for our state file to store it, and we are going to use DynamoDB for that. We are going to use the DynamoDB for the locking. Then here we need to have the AWS account, and that user should have the permissions to S3 bucket and all these bucket access we required. Once we done that, then AWS credentials, all these anyhow we have already set up that. Then in the AWS S3, either console or CLI, we need to create a bucket and versioning need to be enabled. Okay, so once we enable that versioning,
We can see the previous versions in
yeah,
the
the versioning we need to enable. After that, we need to restrict that bucket policy also. So only for the users itself, we need to give the bucket permission.
Hello.
For unauthorized users, we shouldn't give the bucket access, because if they see the state file, all those will have lot of details. That is the reason it's not at all recommended. Okay, exact to whom we need to give the permissions, for them only we need to apply. Okay, then here we need to create a DynamoDB table also we need to create. Okay, so now here we need to create a DynamoDB table, and what is the name of the table we have given is Terraform hyphen lock. Okay, so Terraform hyphen locks we have given. Okay, so either from the CLI we can give, or from the like a console also we can create. Okay, so even for this also we need to give the permissions. Then here in our Terraform backend, what you need to configure is backend is S3 we are going to use. The backend is we are going to use the S3 bucket. The backend we are going to use is the S3, and the key is the path in which location our state file is going to store, region, and DynamoDB table, and encryption we are going to enable true. Okay. So what is that advantage of enabling the encryption is, even if someone want to try to access that state file also, it's going to be encrypted. If you have any sensitive details, is one of the best practices is to use the encryption. The encryption need to be enabled. Then definitely we need to use Terraform init. We need to initialize. Okay, so definitely we need to use the Terraform init in order to initialize. By default, if you run Terraform apply, that's maybe stores in, by default is maybe stores in the local state file. But now if I use that initialization again, that state file is going to be copied to where it is going to copy that state file. To the remote backend, it is going to store. Okay, if you use that by default, as of now, like we have local state file. Okay, but I have configured to the remote backend. Then it detects the detained, say in the Terraform provider we have added right this line. By seeing this, what Terraform init is going to do is,
Backend, it will create S3
it is
bucket.
going to, already bucket is there,
Bucket is there,
but
yeah.
we have locally the Terraform.tf state. It is going to copy that tf state to,
State/terraform.tf state, right?
yeah, in that state dot, in that S3 bucket, in that location, it is going to store that. Okay, initializing the backend and successfully configure that. Okay, and verifies the lock also. Okay, so then like based on that, it is going to store that. In which scenario you are going to use the force hyphen unlock?
multiple users are
Yeah, if
working.
no, if no users are using the state file, but still it is displaying the state
Yes.
file is locked.
Locking, yes,
Yeah,
correct.
in that scenario, you need to forcefully. Otherwise, if someone is using and if you use force unlock, it's a very tough situation. So that's the reason never use force hyphen unlock. Okay, what is the problem is uh, his existing setup would be corrupted. Okay, so in the real time, you never try to use force hyphen unlock. What is the problem we'll get is if any of the user is using that, okay, so his work would be stopped there because Terraform may be provision, but it may not store into the state file. It may not store those details. Okay. Say if you use the Terraform, like maybe here, if you use Terraform plan or apply, it is showing like this conditional check fail exception, and this is the ID we got. This ID, what we need to do is like a Terraform force hyphen unlock. Okay, that ID we need to get it. How to get that ID is if you use Terraform plan or apply, for everyone it is showing with this lock ID that has been corrupted. Okay, so in that use case, what you need to do is we need to force hyphen unlock we need to use in that use case. Okay, so definitely we need to confirm like no other process, no user is running at that moment when you are using the force unlock. Okay, so that's mandatory. We need to confirm once. And what is the advantage of enabling the encryption for the S3 bucket? What is the advantage of enabling the encryption?
Sensitive data should not be shared to the other people. I
Yeah,
mean,
say suppose what type of sensitive data we may have is we may have the passwords or certificates, keys. So those kind of information we shouldn't share to anyone. Okay, so that is the purpose. So we should use the encryption. And what is the advantage of enabling the versioning?
we can retrieve the previous version if something happens.
Yeah, if something happen, at least from that we can refresh those resources or one or two resources if missing, at least we can track it from the Terraform import kind of things. Okay, so with the import we can perform those all the details we can get it. And definitely we need to give the permissions, all these also. And even if you have the enabling the versioning also, replicate that state file resources to another location also, better to store them. Store in the another location also, we are going to use it. So now here we already discussed this log file and DynamoDB. Then all these details are going to be stored. Then we have the Terraform state commands also. We have some of the state commands. We already discussed one command that is Terraform state RM. In which use case we use Terraform state RM? Say that resource is already deleted in that AWS wise, but now we want to delete that resource from the state file. That resource need to be deleted from the state file wise. Then I'm going to use Terraform state RM. Okay, so Terraform show or Terraform state list. Okay, will list all the resources in that state file. Okay, so now here I can use Terraform state list all the resources. Even the same thing we can get it from Terraform show also. If you want to list only AWS one particular instance like this, okay, so then state list AWS that resource name also. Suppose if it is a AWS underscore VPC, like this, we can display that only that resource we can get that. And Terraform state show also detailed information, either Terraform show or state show we can use. Okay, so Terraform state RM, actual resource is not getting deleted, but in which use case you'll use is already someone deleted that resource in that AWS, then we are going to use state file. Okay, so that means that already orphaned that resource. Okay, so then that resource, like here Terraform state RM AWS underscore instance, what is the name of that resource we are going to delete? Now even we need to delete it from the configuration file also if we don't want.
Sorry, I missed it. Like you mean to say that for RM file to delete the file, right? Normally Terraform.
No, Terraform state RM, only from the state file that resource would be deleted.
Okay.
That actual resource already someone deleted from GUI wise.
Okay.
So in that use case, you can use Terraform state RM, we can use it.
Okay.
Okay. So then state move MV is when we want to move to another state file also, maybe like we have two projects. Now we want to merge both of them into a single itself. At that use case, we are going to use, like maybe we want to rename or maybe modules we want to use. I'll explain this in the modules. Then state MV we are going to use. Okay. And what is the state pull is going to perform is have a remote backend and download that remote state file. Okay. So maybe I want to check that one. So we need to have the permissions for that. Okay. Then state pull is going to be pulled from the remote backend. Okay. So maybe for the backup purpose also we may use that. And push is local state file, it is going to push to remote backend, but then this is in the real time not recommended to use. Okay, so Terraform state push uh, is not recommended to perform. If it is maybe the actual file is corrupted something, then we need to pull it, then perform the changes, then we are going to push that one. Okay, so replace provider, if we have the old provider, we have that we need to update to the newer one, we can use that. So these are all the state related commands we have. Okay, so then here we'll discuss the Terraform import. So what is going to be done with the Terraform import is, okay, so Terraform import that resource address dot resource ID. Okay, so in this use case, like my resource address is AWS underscore instance dot example. Okay, example is the new name I am giving, but the resource ID, how we got this instance ID? Because that resource already existing from GUI wise. That resource is already existing.
Already EC2 is already existing in the system,
Yeah,
right?
that ID we know. But now from this, it is if I use the Terraform import, what is going to happen? Here, if I run this Terraform import,
Import to the
Terraform import AWS underscore instance dot example, this ID if I give to where it is going to import that resource.
EC2.
No. To the state file, it is going to import. But where it is missing?
Rem-
In the configuration file, it is missing. Okay, then in your main.tf also, okay, this block you need to keep it. Okay, so then resource AWS underscore instance. What is the name we have given in that importing is example. Okay, then that AMI, all these details, how we can get is, how,
Every specific reason they have a specific AMA number.
once you import that, all those details would be imported.
Yes.
Okay, so then from the Terraform state file, you can see, and in your main.tf, this block you need to keep. If you don't keep this in the Terraform main.tf, what is going to happen? If I don't keep this in the main.tf, what is going to happen?
It won't import to the
No,
specific.
it imported to the state file, but when we do the Terraform apply, that resource is getting deleted automatically.
Okay, instant is not there. Okay.
So that is the reason definitely we need to keep. So we need to keep that one in the main.tf also. But these all details like AMI, instance type, all these details, how we are going to get? When we import that resource, in that you can get it, or manually also you can see that. Manually, you can see those all. Okay, from the instance IDs, AMI IDs, all those manually you can get, or for the first time when we import that resource, from the state file, we can see all those details we can see. Okay, so from that we are going to maintain that. Okay, so in the same way, so state list we need to confirm, and even we need to do the plan also. According to that, even in that we need to perform the changes. And in this use case, we are going to import VPC. We already know one VPC ID. Okay, then what is the command here is Terraform import AWS underscore VPC, whatever the name you want to keep. So now here in this, if I keep the name as VPC AWS underscore VPC dot example they kept, and this is the VPC ID. So if I run this Terraform import this command, what is going to happen? If I use the Terraform import, what is going to happen?
Create.
It will import that actual resource details into state file. Okay. So after this, what you need to do? So you need to import that resource even into your
Resource also.
in the main.tf also. Okay. So there in the while importing, if you give AWS underscore VPC dot my VPC, here also you need to give my VPC itself. Why here we have given the example here?
Anything we can specify the name, right?
Yeah,
So
but while importing also same name we need to use.
it should be displayed. Yeah.
Yeah, here AWS underscore VPC. If I give here my VPC, there also I can give
My
my VPC I can give. Is it fine?
So you mean to say that like import will import to the
The actual resources it is going to import. That is the reason we give the VPC ID, right?
yes.
Then that details all that it will fetch that.
Okay.
But it stores in which location it is going to store?
main.tft.
No.
TF state
Yeah,
file.
in the terraform.tf state file it is going to store. Based on those details, you need to add this resource block in your.
And even the TF Terraform.tf state is created once we apply, right?
No. This one we are importing. When you import, that would be get those details.
Okay. It's confused. Okay.
So when we do the Terraform import, it will get those details.
Okay.
Okay, or manually by seeing the details also you can write down this. Okay, if I write down here, if I don't import, what is going to happen is
It says that
again
all.
it will try to create a new resource because state file doesn't know, right?
Okay. It won't throw the error. It will create new one.
It will try to create that. If VPC is already existing with that ID, then it may throws the
It's
because
already
that
exists.
VPC ID is already existing, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this all we need to take care properly in our real time. Also, these kind of scenarios we are doing. Say everyone can use Terraform plan, apply, everyone can create. But these kind of activities mostly we need to perform in the job. Any doubts on this? First, you need to do Terraform import. Okay, so once you do the Terraform import, so what you need to perform after doing the import that in main.tf, that block you need to add it. Okay, so then you have a subnet assume or S3 bucket. So in this example, like if you have any S3 bucket that say suppose already one bucket is existing, my existing bucket like this. So now what we need to do is first better to import that Terraform import AWS underscore bucket dot resource name is like example itself we are giving here. Then my existing bucket. This is the name of that bucket name. Once you import that in your main.tf, in your main.tf, like this block you are going to create. Okay, so this block you are going to create. Okay, so what Terraform import is doing?
It moved to the file to the
Yeah,
state.
so suppose assume I'll tell one use case. We don't know Terraform. Before that itself, we created 40 resources using console, like maybe console we have used, or we use the CLI, or maybe we use CloudFormation also. But now, what is the requirement is we need to use Terraform itself, provisioning of those resources manually through portal or CLI. CloudFormation is not supported in our scenario. Okay, then all those we need to import our resources to the state file. And second use case when we'll use the Terraform import command is we lost our state file. We lost our state file. Okay, so that means I don't have backup. Versioning will tell versioning will enable, backup will enable, but that interview will be keep on telling we don't have any of those. Okay, in that the worst option what you need to do is because we have already those resources are existing in all the resources are existing in AWS, but where we lost that in the state file we lost those. If we
It's
do
solid.
apply, all resources will get deleted.
You mean to say that it's solid they existing in AWS, but it
Yes,
is
but the state file is corrupted or deleted. Like we lost our state file.
So we can import once again, right?
Yeah, but how many resources you have?
40.
body.
Yeah, that's a manual process, right?
Yeah.
So that is the worst option you need to tell. But before that, what you can tell is maybe you can have a versioning is enabled. Okay, then what is the difference between Terraform refresh and import? What is the difference between Terraform refresh and import?
Normally refresh nothing, but it will remove all. I mean, it's normally it will clear everything, and the system is ready to available for the initial stage.
No. Refresh.
It's like
Okay.
a,
Refresh, what it will do is already my state file is existing that resource.
okay.
In the state file, I have EC2, but I have modified that resource. I have modified that resource in console. Then if I do the Terraform refresh, those changes it will bring to state file. But in import scenario, to bring those changes, we don't have that resource itself doesn't know to. That resource itself doesn't know to
Where to?
the state file. Then you need to import. I'll tell one example. I have a tag for my EC2 instance. Okay, say example key pair I have. Okay, but the resource I have created through Terraform itself. That's the reason in my state file also that's having example key pair only.
Yes.
But what I did is I went to console. I have modified that name example key pair to my Terraform key pair something. Then if I do the Terraform refresh, that resource is already existing, but in my local state file, I have example key pair. But when we do the refresh, it is changing to my Terraform
Terraform key pair.
key pair. That refresh is doing or import is doing?
Refresh.
Refresh.
Import is doing, sir.
No. Import is, if I don't have that resource block itself, then it is importing. That resource is already there in my state file, but some modifications are there. That would be done by refresh.
The simple thing, sir. The
Yeah.
state, when we have a state file and when
That
we
resource
modify,
is existing, then refresh will work.
yeah, when you change it, then when
Yeah, if the resource itself is not existing, then
it will move to the state file again.
import can't do anything on that.
Okay.
Because that Terraform state doesn't know about that resource itself.
Yes.
At that moment, if you want to manage it from the state file wise, then you need to
Import.
import that resource. After importing, what you need to do, even to your main.tf also, you need to add that resource block.
Yes. Whatever the
Yeah, whatever the details we got, those all the details we need to pass it to.
Then it will move to the state file, right? States.
No, both are in sync.
Okay.
So now we have that resource. Normally what we are doing is we are creating main.tf. When we do the apply, it's going to be creating that resource and state file also is getting created. But in the import, we are doing in reverse. Already that resource is existing. Then first we are importing that. Then it comes to state file. Then you apply even in main.tf file also you need to do. This is the reverse order we are doing.
Okay. When we do initiation and apply.
Yeah, if that resource is not at all existing, for the first time we are creating through Terraform, that is the main.tf, Terraform plan, apply, that is the order.
Yes.
But
Here
if already the resource is existing, then that resource is already existing. Nothing to do from the AWS wise. But first we need to import that to state file. After that,
main.tf.
to main.tf also the resource block you need to add. Okay, if I don't have that resource in my state file, what is going to happen is duplicate resource will get created. Okay, I have that my resource in state file, but I don't have in main.tf file. Then what is going to happen? How my resource is existing in state file, but I don't have that in my main.tf file. Then if I do Terraform apply, what is going to happen?
It may says like already existing because
No.
Okay. Its state file is there.
In configuration file, if it is not there, then that resource would be deleted.
Deleted. Yeah.
That resource would be
Deleted.
deleted. Okay, so both we need to take care that. Okay, so both need to be, we need to take care. Not only importing. Okay, but if you lost the state file, only import is enough because already we have those configuration details, right? In the main.tf file is existing.
Yes, main.tf is there and tf state file is not there. And then we used to import, and then it will import to the state file, and then it is
Then we need
reversed
to update to main.tf file also.
main.tf file also. We think whatever the resource we are using.
Yes, yes.
Now we got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in another use case, your complete Terraform file is corrupted. Then also we are going to use this one. But definitely we need to match the Terraform configuration details, all those we need to get those IDs, names. Okay, and before importing, better to take a backup also. State file backup need to be done. Okay, we need to test all those. And if we have any VPC need to be there. Okay, the dependents maybe subnets, security groups, okay, internet gateways, all those also we need to import that. Okay, even if you have a easy to instance that network interface, those key pairs, all those also we need to import it. And better to have a documents also.
Please share this document as well.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Okay, so then after we import that, we have one more file is there, important file. We'll discuss what are the files we have. This backend also you try to keep. Okay, so S3 bucket we are creating, versioning we are enabling, encryption we are enabling. We are creating a data like a DynamoDB. And after that, we are going to initialize the backend. Okay. So now, we have one more important file. What are the files we have already we discussed? Files and directories in our workspace. Okay. So the directory, we have a directory, right? Maybe CD or mkdir. We are creating one directory. When that will become a workspace? When that will become a workspace? When we do the Terraform init, that will become the workspace. When we do the Terraform init, that is going to become the workspace. Okay, in our workspace, okay, what are the files we have? Can you explain me what are the files we have? So we have maybe main.tf, the providers.tf also we can have. Sometimes even backend.tf also we can keep. And for the input variables, what is the name we are keeping?
variables.tf,
Variables dot
output.tf,
outputs.tf also we have important file. These all our configuration files we have. .tf files are the configuration files we have. Okay. So then when we do the Terraform init, .terraform directory would be created, downloads all the providers. Then .terraform,
terraform.tf state.
no, HCL.log file would be generated with the init itself. Terraform.tf state will generate
Apply.
when we do the Terraform apply. Okay, so Terraform apply is that. Then we have one more very important file we have. When the state file modifies, we'll get one more file.
Terraform.tf state.backup.
Terraform.tf state dot
Backup. Dot backup.
dot backup file. For the first time when the state file modifies, this one will come. Okay, then we have one more important file. Okay, that is Terraform dot tfvars file. So what is that file name?
tf.vars.
Terraform dot tf var or vars file we have. What is this file? We'll discuss. Now, in our variables, here we have declared one variable. Okay, AWS underscore region. And what is this default value? So in the variable, you can give it a default value. What is the default value meaning? If I don't give any value, by default, it is going to take that t2.micro itself. Okay, what is the advantage in the variable having the default value is, if I don't declare any value, by default, it is going to take,
t2.micro.
Micro.
yeah, t2.micro. That is the meaning of default. Or if I want to modify this one at the time of Terraform apply is, what I can use is, like assume in the apply, Terraform apply hyphen var. What is the var name we have is
Instance type.
instance underscore type equal to t3.micro something I can give. Okay. So then if I give this one at the command line, okay, I'm using the argument like hyphen var I'm going to use. And what is going to happen in that use case? What is going to happen in that use case?
It changes to
T3.micro. But this is also not a best practice. We have 10 to 20 like variables we have. Okay, instead of passing all those from the command line, better to declare them in one file, and that file is nothing but terraform.tfvars. So now in the previous variables.tf, okay, so I have three variables, and those values I'm passing in my terraform.tfvars. So what are the values I have given for AWS underscore region is US East 1. Instance type is T2.small. Okay. So key pair name is my key pair. Okay. So these all the values I'm storing in my, these all the details I'm stored in,
main.tf.
no, not in main.tf. In my terraform.tfvars, I'm going to store that. In my
Okay.
terraform.tfvars is used to. So now what is the advantage is,
You mean
in
to
the
say
same scenario, I have three environments I have. Okay, I have three environments. Then I'm not creating terraform.tfvars. I'm going to create three environments. Production.tfvars is one file I'm going to use. Then second scenario, what I'm going to use is dev.tfvars. In my dev.tfvars, I don't want to use US East 1, US East 2, and I don't want to use T2 small. I want to use T2 micro, and I don't want to use this key pair. Okay, test key pair. In the same way, my QA.tfvars, those values are different. Okay, so with this, what is going to happen is, if I have the three environments, I'm not going to use the same configuration. What I'm using, I'm passing with the three different values I'm passing. I'm passing from the three different values I'm passing. Okay, so in this use case, whenever I'm using the Terraform apply hyphen var file, I'm going to use production.tfvars if it is a production environment. If it is QA environment, I don't use the variable. I'm passing all those as a variable value file itself. I'm going to use it. Okay. So what is the advantage with that? What is the advantage with that?
specific systems, we can pass specific values.
Yeah, for the different environments, we can pass, say, suppose same TF files, but for the different environments, I'm passing different. And
Right.
instead of passing from the command line, better to keep them. And if any modifications are required, also directly you can change in that QA settings. If you want to modify QA, we can change. And production, if you want to change in the production, you can change. So that is the advantage of using
.tfvars.
tfvar files. tfvars files. By default, that file name is terraform.tfvars. But instead of using terraform.tfvars, for dev, I'm creating one environment. For production, I'm creating one environment. And for the QA, say if I have four environments, four tfvar files, we can keep it. Okay, so like this, we are going to use. Okay, so when I'm do the Terraform apply, okay, if I don't specify anything, by default it will take in the local directory. If you have terraform.tfvars, okay, by default that if I use Terraform apply, these values will take the precedence. Okay, if I don't have those in my terraform.tfvars, I didn't declare anything, then that will take the default value. So here we have the precedence of order also, and we have some environment variables also that order will discuss. Okay, so now here in this scenario, if I have like in my directory, like I have terraform.tfvars, okay, then I have production.tfvars. I didn't specify anything in my Terraform apply. Okay, then which one it will take? Consider. Okay, if I do only Terraform apply, it will take from the terraform.tfvars files only. That is the reason don't keep in the directory terraform.tfvars. Okay, better to keep qa.tfvars, staging.tfvars. So for each one, you are assigning like this. Three values you are going to pass. Okay, AWS region is US East one, or for QA, I want to test it in Mumbai. Then AP South one. Okay, set t2.small, and that key pair I'm going to give that key pair name in the Mumbai one I'm going to give. Like this, I'm going to create. Okay.
And we already designed for specific 3 countries, and futurely we got another requirement to add one more country or one more
Yeah, that
specific
is, we can add it in that, say, suppose for which environment you have, that you can create in .tfvars.
Okay.
That
Understand.
-var-file, you can give those.
Okay.
Say in this scenario, one challenge says, suppose you want to work with three environments, you no need to create three different environments values. Okay, so now here, another method is we can use environment variables also. This I'll explain in the tomorrow session. Okay, so you can export them as an environment variable also, you can export. Okay, then I have my prod.tfvars, qa.tfvars, staging.tfvars we have. If any another environment may be added later, tfvars I can add it. For each one, I'm going to declare those values I'm going to declare. Instead of keeping all same, depends upon your environment, you can declare those. Then, what is the problem I'll get here is, I'm using the same directory, but the state files will be like, will be one challenge. With the state file wise, we have the different challenges. Okay, in that scenario, we are going to use workspace, because for the three different environments, I want to create three different state files, three different output values I want to declare. Then we are going to declare the three different workspaces also, or four different workspaces, and which environment you are working, you can switch from one workspace to another workspace. Okay. Otherwise, what is the problem we'll get is that state file may be already existing for dev environment. Then for the QA or maybe production, it won't create a resource. What it will tell? The resource is already existing, but that resource is existing for which environment? For the dev environment, that resource is existing. In order to avoid this one, in the same directory, we are switching from one workspace to another workspace. Okay. So if you want to work with the multiple environments, the values we are passing from tfvars. But what is the advantage of using the workspace?
We can switch between the.
Yeah, we can switch from one workspace, one environment to another environment. Excuse me.
One more thing is, I mean, if we have only 3 values to be changed, then we can use the parameters, right? So, I mean, we can default.
No, that values we have passed from the variables.
Okay.
But that what are the values you want are different from one environment to another environment.
Okay.
So now this one is for assume for production.tfvars. Okay, but my settings are different for qa.tfvars.
Okay.
The variables are already there. The values to those variables for the different environments we are creating. We are just assigning the values to those variables.
Okay, got it. Like I thought, like that. I mean, there is an option to
No,
input.
that is already that is parameters itself. We declare the variables, but the values to those variables we are passing from.
tfvars. What I'm trying to say that, like, I mean, is there any option to input? Like, for example, when I run the, I mean, tf plan, and I mean, I can get option to tf AWS region equal to. I mean, manually I enter.
No, that is that value you are passing.
Okay.
Say, assume I have one scenario, count or instance count is there, one more variable. For dev, I want to create 4. For QA, I want to create 3. For production, I want to create 10. Okay, so different values you can pass it from that like these are just assigning the values to those variables. Already we declare the variables. Say suppose in this scenario, if we go to that variable, already variable is there. What is the name of the variable? What is the name of region? To that region, or say suppose in that use case here, if my variable is I need to keep AWS underscore region. That value here I'm passing US East 1. That variable is already declared. And I have one more variable is instance underscore type. That value I'm assigning here. But for different environments, I want different values. Those I can pass it from tfvars. Or one more method is command line. Okay. So which one is recommended in the DevOps environment? Either as a file or command line. Which is the recommended one? So command line we can pass it through -var. Okay. Or you declare for different environments tfvars, which is recommended. Which is recommended. .tfvars itself is always recommended in the production environments. Instead of passing them from
command lines.
From the command line. Because in the GitHub itself will keep all this and if any changes required, directly you can change from the tfvar file itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of automation we need to provide to the client also. Okay.
Okay, got it.
So most of these I'll show in the tomorrow session.
Okay. Please share that Word documents.
Sure. I'll share this.